It is, of course, important that your citizens know how to drive and understand the rules to keep everyone safe, which is why the Taiwanese driver's test has questions like, according to the picture, when encountering bees, what should the rider do to ride safely? Or for example, when encountering a flock of geese crossing a country road, what should you do? Encountering a police envoy, you can join the convoy. As you can see, a lot of these aren't related to driving at all. For example, when there is an unconscious victim in an accident with broken bones, what do you do? Now, I have somehow already passed this test of medical and wildlife questions, and now I can drive a scooter. But that's not what I want to talk about today, because I have recently wanted to purchase a larger motorcycle, a heavy motorcycle, which in Taiwan is anything over 250cc. Sounds ridiculous to Americans, I know, but that's just the way it is here. But I wanted to pass that test because, one, I wanted to see if it was just as ridiculous or as easy as the scooter test, and
ever since I was a boy in Canada watching Bob L'Éponge
Vous me faites marcher, monsieur.
and Monsieur Ananas,
Je suis un ananas.
pourquoi je ne parle pas français? And so sorry, Dad, I still don't speak French. I have loved cars and motorcycles. And it's a huge reason I moved here to Taiwan, because scooters here are cheap, abundant, and everyone has one. Because if you live outside of Taipei and you don't have a scooter, you've basically rendered yourself legless. You can't get around very easily at all. And so one of the first things I did here was get my scooter license.
Getting my scooter license wasn't all that hard aside from those odd questions I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but just how easy is the motorcycle lessons? Well, I filmed the whole thing so you guys can see even a foreigner can pass it.
Alright, so we're going to start this test here in this little box, and the first thing I got to do is go straight for 7 seconds or longer on this part. And there's like sensors on either side of this thing that will be able to tell if you fall off, and basically just kind of drag the rear brake. It keeps you pretty steady and you shouldn't have too much of an issue, and that looks pretty good. That's like a 12-second time, 9-second time. I don't know what I did there, I can't see. That part's not easy, and then you gotta go to a figure 8, so you start turning right, and I'm gonna do the same trick as before. I'm gonna drag that rear brake, but this time I'm actually just gonna like counter lean, so I'm gonna lean on the other side of where the bike is leaning, and it tends to keep me pretty steady. It looks like this part there used to be a figure 8 here, but the lines have since like been faded, so there isn't one, but you kind of have to pretend there's a figure 8 there. But here it's just like the letter C, and you do the exact same thing, but you come around the other side. I'm finding this test like really easy so far, despite the fact that this is my first time on a bike over like 400 cc's. This is easy. The other part I don't really understand is this like hill I have to go over, or a lump you just go over, and then that's it. And now it's basically a stoplight, so you got to turn your left signal on. If it's red, you stop. If it's green, you just go. I don't really, that's pretty basic stuff. And now I got to do an emergency stop. So I got to get into third gear and go at least 25 kilometers an hour. So short shifting, got to keep going, cross this line, and emergency brake. What's interesting there is that the ABS kicked on. I've never felt ABS on a bike before because I've never been rich enough to afford a bike that has that, or afford a bike anything bigger than, like I said, 400 cc's. Once the clock hits 0, I gotta stop at a railroad crossing. I find this really adorable because they build all this to look real, even though none of it actually is. Once that's gone, I just gotta go to this stoplight, and once I'm finished this part, I'm done. I can legally ride a bike. That was the whole test. That's how ridiculously easy this is. It's a bit of a joke. If you know how to ride a motorcycle, this really shouldn't be too difficult for you. Alright, so let's get on the road and talk about the fact that I don't really sound all that excited about getting my license. I'm kind of taking the piss out of it. I'm kind of being sarcastic about it in true prosy fashion. How this video, I talked to Alan about how much more better this video would work if I was like really excited and positive and over the moon about getting my license and finally being able to drive a big bike, but that annoyed me a lot. That forced positivity, that like over the top, excitement that not necessarily, I'm not saying it's faked in his videos. I think his videos are great. It's just not my style. And I think the second reason I'm not like over the top crazy excited is that after seeing what the test actually is, I kind of thinking to myself like, was that a big deal? I mean, pretty much anyone who knows how to ride a motorcycle can do it. I don't even drive big motorcycles. It's not even like my thing, I've always driven smaller bikes and I was able to do that really easily. So I don't know why, if I don't sound like crazy excited or whatever, it's just, I don't think it's something to be that excited about. What I am excited about, though, is the fact that I can finally ride a proper motorcycle, a quote-unquote heavy motorcycle as it's known here in Taiwan. And the reason I'm still on this scooter is the fact that, you know, I'm not giving this up. I'm not letting this thing go. I'm not going to sell it and only have just the motorcycle. Taiwan runs on scooters. You cannot live here without a scooter. And they're just way too convenient, and they're still fun. You know, yes, they're slow, but you're not going to go very fast stuck in Taiwanese traffic anyway. And this is what I do my shopping on. This is how I get to work. This is how I go to the pub. This is how I see my friends. I'm currently on my way to go film a podcast with Alan. Go check out the link in the description if you want to check it out. This is just way too convenient. That red plate right there, that big bike, what is that, a Yamaha? Yeah, that thing is sweet. It's old, but that's cool. That's a red plate motorcycle. That's a big old bike. Very expensive here in Taiwan, which is what I have my license to drive, and the bike I'll get soon. Next week's video, I will be revealing my bike for those who care. But it's something I definitely want to bring back because it was a big part of my channel when I lived in China. I had a few scooters, I had a few motorcycles, and they were almost characters on my channel. That sounds a little douchey, but they were. I feel like my audience back then, who I think is still with me, I'd really like to know. Like, comment down below if you have been watching me since China. I'd really like to know. If not, that's cool too. But my audience back then really liked my bikes and my motorcycles, and they gave them names. You know, I let my audience name my bikes, and I did a lot more motovlogs back then than I do now, and it was a lot of fun, you know, filming on them, and I want to bring that back. I want a proper, do I turn right here? Let's turn right somewhere else. I'm looking forward to the fact that it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to the fact that I can ride something on weekends. Things I'm not looking forward to, however, while we're on the topic, is of course parking. You can see on the side of this road, Taiwan has, like most countries, parking spaces for cars, these rectangles that the car is parked on. And it also has scooter parkings, which is just kind of there in front of that white van. I don't know if you guys can see it if that's too far away because I'm on the wide angle lens, but those are scooter parking. Tiny rectangles. Scooters can park there. They're great. They're cheap. However, large motorcycles like the one I'm going to buy is not allowed to park in there, which is a giant pain in the ass, which is why you see a lot of people, like that white van, parking on a red line, which is illegal. And that's how you get your car or bike either towed or you get a massive ticket. So this guy here is parking illegally, but I can't blame him because parking in Taiwan is expensive and very difficult to find. I have to give a big shout out again to Glory, who helped me look all around my apartment for parking, and there just isn't any. We found one that was outdoor, but an outdoor parking doesn't really help me because it doesn't protect my bike from the weather. It doesn't protect my bike from thieves. The only thing it protects it from, ironically, is the police from impounding my bike from illegally parking it. So I chose not to do that, and I'm just parking it away from my house. And to get to my bike, I'll have to take my scooter. In Taiwan, scooters and motorcycles are almost disposable, and they're not looked after. I feel like Americans, like if you ever watch Sons of Anarchy, if you watch Americans around their motorcycles, they're very protective of their motorcycles. They don't like other people touching their motorcycles or sitting on their motorcycles or even like going near their motorcycles without asking. They're very defensive drivers. In the West, they need to have a car's amount of space. Like motorcycles are treated as cars. Here, people will park very close to you and scratch up the crap of your bike to the point where, like, this bike I bought from a shop, which you shouldn't do, but it looked really new, and it wasn't. But, you know, it was clean and new, and I wanted to look after it. And I parked in scooter parking, which is where this thing is supposed to be parked. And immediately, you know, it was just scratched to hell. You can see on the side benders, it's scratched really, really deeply, which sucks because this bike is not necessarily cheap. Not crazy expensive, but it's not cheap. And people just don't care here. They'll scratch up your shit, and it doesn't even matter. To Taiwanese people, it's like, well, of course, it's just the way it is. If you look at all their scooters, they're all scratched to crap. They all end up looking like garbage. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just the way it is.
Anyways, that's it for me. So thanks so much for subscribing. It really helps. Thanks to all my Patreons for continued support of the channel. And I'll catch you guys next week where me and Alan actually go and pick that bike up.